And when you say, treat the person, it's funny, in the back of Movement is Medicine for my staff, like the other therapists I have here, I have like a list of things for them to think about every day. And one of the ones on there is treat the whole person and don't treat just the injury.
This episode of the Smart Athlete Podcast is brought to you by Solpre, skincare for athletes. Whether you're in the gym, on the mats, on the road, or in the pool, we protect your skin so you're more comfortable in your own body. To learn more, go to solpre.com. Welcome to the Smart Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Funk. My guests today, that is with an S, it's plural. I am lucky to have two people here to speak with me today, include co-authors of Functional Training Anatomy, this nice book here. One of the guests, certified functional strength coach and certified massage therapist, Kevin Carr, as well as his co-author of Functional Training Anatomy, former Division I soccer player. She has her PhD in teaching and administration, is currently an assistant professor of strength and conditioning at Springfield College, Mary Kate Feit. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining me. Thanks for making the adjustment to Skype. For you listening, you get to just listen on whatever platform you'd like to listen on, but we have to deal with all of the intricacies and annoying technicalities of using Zoom or using Skype and recording and editing and doing all this stuff. So you don't know that they're both nice enough to accommodate me and help us all get recorded and have a good conversation today. So thank you again for making the jump over last minute. It's always tough sometimes trying to schedule everybody, especially when we're doing now 3 people scheduling across time zones. So I guess I'll jump right in a bit. And the thing I always kind of wonder about, since you're co-authors, is how do you decide to co-author a book instead of just being like, all right, I'm doing my own thing. Like, I'm doing my book and then they can do their book and the heck with it from there. Like, how do you negotiate who does what, that you're even going to put together a book to begin with? How does that process work?
I think it's kind of the model that Human Kinetics uses for these anatomy books. If you see these, they have these like anatomy in motion series, kind of covering everything from like a functional training like ours, or basketball or hockey or football. And what they tend to try to do is find someone who's an author or a coach, and then they want to have someone like a PhD attached to the project. And so Mary Kate and I both come from the MBSC, Mike Boyle strength and conditioning kind of coaching tree family. And so it kind of worked out that we could team up for this project, that they were kind of looking to put something like this together. And so this was a natural fit, someone who was kind of Mary Kate, who's in academia at Springfield College, and then myself, who actually I work at Mike Boyle strength and conditioning as a strength coach. So I think we were kind of a good match for the project.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll piggyback off that. I tell everybody Kevin's really the star of the book. I was just there kind of supporting him through the journey, which was exactly how I wanted it. So we work, nowadays you work everything through a computer, through a shared doc with comments and, feedback and whatnot. So Kevin would take the lead on sections and then he would send them to me. I would provide him as much feedback as I could. He would go ahead and make adjustments, and then we kind of moved on from there. So it was really, at the beginning, obviously a little complicated who's doing what and how, but once we figured out our system, it was very, very smooth.
So then with the content of the book, because I always wonder, this isn't the first time this publisher sent me a book. And I always wonder, like, who decides? Did they approach you and say, like, we need a book like this? Or, like, Kevin, are you coming up, or Mary Kate, are you coming up with the idea and saying, I'd like to do something like this, like nobody else is doing this book? I always just kind of wonder, like, how does the idea or the genesis of the book happen? Because I'm sure both of you can write about a number of topics. You could kind of niche down and say, I could write about this, but like what gives birth to this particular topic with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, this was actually an interesting process, because Mike Misha from Human Kinetics reached out to me as the acquisitions editor and kind of had a few different ideas about different book projects that they were looking to put together. And with a couple of volleys of emails back and forth, we came into this functional training anatomy idea, and it goes really hand in hand with the Certified Functional Strength Coach course. So if people have been to our CFSC course, we kind of take people through the training program, then we use it, Mike Boyle strength and conditioning, from foam rolling all the way through conditioning. And this book was kind of like an anatomy adjunct to that kind of explaining, what we were training in those exercises and why we were selecting those exercises and what we were targeting. And so that when we were discussing different book topics, I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to kind of have another accompanying text to the courses that we are teaching, and it would kind of fill the niche and a need for a book for human kinetics as well.
Yeah, I think Kevin nailed that. So I'm gonna let you keep going.
It's, as I went through the book, it's one thing that struck me is that there's been, and I haven't been alive quite this long. I don't think either of you have either, but coming through like 60s, 70s onwards to now, it's like there's this shift from, isolated lifts to more functional training. So I kind of wanted to ask you guys more about that. I kind of live in the endurance world, so it's like, we're more functional approached, but so I have like, just a little bit of a touch point with it, but not very deep knowledge. So what's the journey in the field kind of changing from what I would consider like the bodybuilder Arnold Schwarzenegger approach to fitness that kind of blew up when he was big, to now focusing more on functional skills and functional training? I know I've forgotten his name at the moment, but it'll come to me later. There's a downhill skier. He was talking about the camps he does with his skiers and how they work on all these different kind of movements and skills to get almost, I want to say, like random kind of movements that are useful into muscle memory. So I'm just curious, both your thoughts, opinions, knowledge on the history of the development of like strength training and why we're kind of moving this direction.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about like all of our thoughts and beliefs on strength training are kind of initially influenced by strength sports, right? Like powerlifting or bodybuilding or strongman, right? That's kind of like the foundation for where a lot of people learned about strength. But then I kind of, as we progress to thinking about over time to preparing people for sports or just preparing people for life, like I think we want to clarify that like our choice of exercise is based on our intended outcome, right? So I think for a long time people just used the same tools that we used for bodybuilding and for powerlifting, and those were really appropriate for those outcomes. But then as we start to evolve, we want to start to think about, okay, well, what is the tool that I really want for the optimal carryover? And I think that's really what functional training speaks to.
Yeah, and I know I always tell people I'm the luckiest person in strength and conditioning because, my career started literally at the age of 13 when I started training at MBSC. And, I'm in my late 30s and I talk to people who've been in the field as long as I have, and they talk about the olden days when they did this or that, and there are these awful training methods, right? But I didn't have that. I mean, I can tell some stories about some stuff we did at MBSC back in the day that we probably wouldn't do now. But for overall, like MBSC has evolved, but like those general concepts remain the same, So I've been lucky that I've always kind of been on that track. But again, I talk to other people and they're talking about, reading magazines and then doing a bench cycle, or meeting up with, the old guy at Gold's Gym and learning about bicep curls. And so I think you have seen this evolution. I was lucky that I think I was right on the beginning of the wave, so that I saw it right away. But there's definitely been a change over time. What I see that I really like the change is that it used to be thought that older people should use machines, right? That they should. And I think that's something that we're really seeing a transition now, especially in the last 10 years, of like realizing that just because you're old doesn't mean you need to use machines. You can use free weights too. And I think that's the best evolution that I've seen recently is this acceptance that like, even people who would consider elderly, they can use their body weight and use free weights, and that's more effective than, sitting and using machines.
I think it kind of begs the question a little bit, and in some ways, it's kind of addressed in the book. But is there any room for or purpose for like isolated movements now? Where like I know my father, who is in his late 70s now, he like his fitness thing is he'll get on the bench and do bicep curls. Like that's his go-to move. Where he's working out in his basement. If you're listening, Dad, I love you. But hopefully you can maybe learn something. But is there any room for that? Does it play a part anymore, or should we just say it's a relic of the past and we move on?
I mean, it's one of those things I always tell you, like it won't make you any worse. It just might not get you to right where you need to go. And I think with fitness, the battle is always time. That's our most valuable asset. Like, how much time can we devote to exercise? And with most people's case, it's maybe 2 hours a week, I would say the average client. So if I'm spending, 20 minutes doing arms each time, then I'm probably not getting everything that I could get out of that to get where I need to go. And that's especially for athletes, people who are trying to develop themselves for sports. You just have to be really efficient in your usage of your time in the weight room or in out on the field trying to get prepared. So I always tell my athletes, like, hey, you can get your arms in at the end. After we get our conditioning, you can come right back in and you can run the rack. Because I mean, there's nothing wrong with training for some aesthetics, I think, as long as you're doing all the other stuff you need to do. Have your meat and potatoes before your dessert, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the things I liked in the book, and I want to know was this something that Human Connect said, hey, we want this, or was this something you guys said this is what's needed? Is it, the exercises aren't in isolation. They're okay, this is what they are, this is how they do them, this is what they affect, and this is the purpose of doing it. Because I think I know for me and a lot of people, it's like let's go back and talk about bicep curls. It's like, why the hell am I doing this? Like what benefit am I going to gain out of this? And I think it makes it a little easier to use the book too if you come from basically no background and you can go, oh, like this is the actual purpose of this, so therefore this exercise might be useful. Was that something you guys came up with, or that Human Connect said it would be nice if you included this?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of discussed what would go in each section, and I think the purpose, or like that functional focus section, was intentional because again, like if we're going to define functional training, I say it's purposeful training. Mm-hmm. We're picking exercises to get to a certain outcome, and we always reference the book Start With Why from Simon Sinek, which is like it's in our book club here at MBSC. One, for our coaches to define their purpose for coaching, but also for them to have clarity on programming. Like we always audit the program and say, like, there's a reason that everything's in here. It's not just, we're selecting something that we like and putting in there. So I think it's important in the book that we took the time to explain the why between each section so they can understand the value and the carryover from each exercise.
I like that you pointed out the functional focus piece as well. That was kind of my favorite piece of, all the writing that I would get from Kevin, is looking at how he was able to incorporate it in there. And my mom probably bought like 10 copies of this book, I think, and sent them to all her friends. So my mom used to train with Kevin too, so she's really invested in the book. But she sent it to all her friends, and they'll send me back, and they love that piece. So speaking as someone who's spoken to people who are reading the book who are in their late 60s, they love that functional focus piece and seeing why this matters and why I should do it, because if they're going to invest their time into it, they want to know why. So yeah, that is absolutely my favorite piece, of all the chapters.
Well, that's the thing, that sometimes it's very useful for like either you guys, if we go into like a really deep dive anatomy or physiology book, and there's all this information, and you can make use of it. But then, so someone like me or someone less knowledgeable than me, and not that I'm not very knowledgeable, but I've been around a minute, so I know a few things. I'm not scared of the book. So someone like me or someone less knowledgeable, it gives it an ability to, jump in and figure out why I'm doing it, versus if we're going to go into, a heavy manual, a thick manual where it goes, okay, here's all these things, and you're like, okay, yeah, but I want to be able to kick a soccer ball better. Like, how do I kick a soccer ball better? And you can go in, and you could probably find the right exercises to do that movement, and it makes sense, instead of going, okay, well, now I have to learn about, how the knee is connected to all these ligaments and the tendons and the muscles, and which muscle groups I need. It just, it breaks down and makes the entry point a little bit easier, which I thought was nice, since, the other direction is, I'm sure both of you have experienced this. If you're in like a course of some kind, I was a math undergrad, and my first 400 level math course, the professor taught it like it was a graduate course, and just no consideration for where we were, just like, this is what it is, and here you go. It's so daunting to be presented with that. So I guess I'll just say a collective thank you, which I think, Mary Kate, you've already gotten from people, for including that to make it, manageable for somebody who doesn't really have as deep a background.
Yeah, and I think when you read towards the end and you start to see like how you put it all together, it gets to a point where you're like, okay, I need to plug in an upper body exercise. Let me go to that chapter. Let me pick one. Okay, I need to plug in a lower body exercise. Let me go to that chapter. Let me pick one. So it kind of almost becomes, it helps you create kind of a menu of what exercises you're going to do to create one of these, functional workouts.
And it's a kind of a callback. Mary Kate definitely remembers this. Like at MBSC, we used to have a whiteboard, and all the athletes would have their sheets, and they'd write their exercises in for the day. Before we were using like Excel sheets, they had like their cards. And that's like what I think of when I see that chapter, is like going to the whiteboard and writing in your upper body exercise, writing in your lower body exercise, because then it's almost like paint by numbers for the person who's learning how to build a strength training program for themselves. And so, like you said, we wanted to be able to make it as a reference where they could understand how to build a program based off the pieces we gave them, and start to understand the overall concept, because most young coaches or people who are just recreational athletes who are taking care of themselves, they got to start somewhere. And this is a really good kind of starting place for them.
And this is where I think human kinetics come in, but doing all the illustrations too is very nice, because I know this is a sidestep, but I know, like, if I'm injured or something, I'm always like trying to look at anatomical models and then drill down like where it hurts on my body versus what it looks like on the anatomical drawings I'm looking at, and like trying to understand all the intricacies of what's actually being used, what's being used for the certain motions, why it might hurt, is always tough. So like having that visual representation in each of the exercises, and going, oh, I'm actually using, because like going back to like my soccer ball kicking example, I mentioned I'm just using my leg, so how do I use my leg? I just need to make my leg stronger. It's like, well, yeah, but you're forgetting that you're using your core and your obliques, and like there's this twisting motion, and there's all these other muscles that are being used that you don't think about. So like it's a nice way to think about that, and understand it so intuitively quickly that they can include that for you guys, instead of just reading through things and trying to communicate 3D and time sensitive information like it's emotion in just text, because that's always difficult.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that's something that's changed over time too. I can remember the first time I had like an anatomy strength training, book, you would see an exercise and it would point out that one muscle it was working, right? Which we've learned that's not really the case. It's probably working 8 muscles, right? So I think that hopefully people can take a lot out of the book just looking at those pictures and being like, wow, each one of these does a lot of things. This is not just working my hip flexor, right? So I think having, again, that image or understanding that it's like more movements, it's not just one muscle that's working at a time.
Mm-hmm. So I guess the question, Kevin, is: are you going to make a video series to go along with the book, where you're showing all the movements and you're doing all the models, and then we can like break you down and like show all the
Yeah.
muscles just like the book has going on?
Yeah, well, I am working on a video kind of project with CFSC that's going to go through a lot of the anatomy concepts.
Okay.
And if you're familiar with the company Muscle in Motion, they have like a lot of Instagram videos, and working with them to do it as well, to help highlight like hey, if we go through a single leg squat, what are the frontal plane muscles that are working? What are the sagittal plane muscles that are working? So like Mary Kate said, if you went to an old book, it might just show on a single leg squat like quadricep and glute, right? When in reality, a lot of the value in that exercise comes from glute medius and the adductor as well as stabilizers, and so being able to call the attention to that. So yeah, that is something that this is actually the video studio that I'm sitting in here, working on filming some of those things over the next couple months, and collaborating with them so we can highlight the muscles on there. So hopefully that'll be coming up soon.
That's like I said, that's the nice part about having the actual drawings, and then video obviously takes it to the next level. There's just something, because of the way we perceive information, there's just something nice about just seeing it and then obviously watching yourself. I know I was doing, what was I doing? Single leg deadlifts, and my wife was like, "I don't think you're doing those right." And I was close, but not quite. When I'd started doing them, but like I hadn't been watching myself do them and hadn't realized, oh, like this is a little off. Like, you need to move that a little bit. And so once you can see somebody else do it and then see yourself do it, like that's so much quicker than trying to go through, like, if you just verbally explain to me this is how it's done, when that may not click. So that's why I kind of want to give you a hard time about the videos, but it is nice that you're actually working on that.
Yep.
My most pressing question for you guys today is a personal one. And I want to know, because I have terrible posture, although I try to work my best when we're on video. Can I fix my terrible posture with strength training? Like, can I just like work out my back muscles really well and like improve my posture? This is something I've been struggling with for a long time. And I have never found the right answer. So since I have you guys captive, I want to see if you can help me.
Well, this is what I always say, is because like I mean, I work as a massage therapist and like rehab corner, so I have the posture question all the time, and like I would say the best posture is a changing one, because like we're meant to move, and so don't get stuck up on what you look like on a plumb line when you turn sideways and you're like, oh, my head's a little forward, my shoulders are back. Because if it was easy as just doing a bunch of rows and your shoulders went backwards, like we'd be able to like change how people look really easy. But
yeah.
What I tell people is we want to, if we can keep all of our joint spaces healthy, like move your neck through a full range of motion multiple times a day, move your shoulders through a full range of motion once a day, move your T-spine all the way through, then we're able to maintain joint health, right? And usually people complain about posture because like their neck's stiff or their shoulder's stiff or their back is stiff. And so continually going through a joint maintenance routine, and then breaking up your time when you're sitting. Because we're really adaptable to the positions that we're in. You're gonna find what is probably the most energy efficient position, which might not be the best long-term position for how you feel, right? Like crunching over the desk. And so being able to set times, movement breaks into your workday, if you're someone who's very seated very often, saying, okay, I'm gonna get up in 25 minutes and move my neck, move my shoulder, move my hip, and then just participate in a full body strength training routine that's pretty balanced. And that's kind of help you build the capacity to get through your day. If you're someone who's seated, I always say like the working with the average like desk jockey, they have to prepare and be fit enough to get through an 8-10 hour workday sitting down, just like an athlete does. And so that means developing core stability, developing upper back and shoulder and postural stability through your neck, and by doing things like basic stuff, push-ups, planks, core exercises, so that they don't fatigue and throughout the day, because you search for the most energy efficient position, which is typically hunched over. So you keep moving.
Okay. The main reason I ask actually is I tweaked something on my back when I was swimming, and it was a rest week, so I wasn't even moving that hard, and I didn't notice it till the next day, and then it was like swollen, and I've got tape on my back now, and just the most bizarre thing. I have never had anybody actually like help me fix what's going on. It's been an issue since college, though, and it is very rarely severe. I always felt like I play the violin. I always felt like it came from that, where like you've got your hands up, and then I have this long, annoying neck, and so I'd be like crunched to hold the thing, and then that tightens all these muscles back here because you're not supposed to do that. It's supposed to be relaxed, but because my neck is too long, it's a whole thing. And I keep searching for answers because I'm like, somebody's got to be able to help me fix this. So, when I have you guys captive, I just say, maybe I can get something out of you that will lead me down the right path, and maybe give something for you guys to think about. Because I don't know how many violinists you work with, but it's something.
It's
different.
interesting. I have a violinist and a cello player.
Okay.
And it's all neck, shoulder, scap, arm type stuff. And it's like with any sport, you start to adapt to the sport. If you look at pitchers, they tend to lose internal rotation on their throwing shoulder, and they gain a bunch of external rotation on the throwing shoulder, right? As an adaptation to repeatedly throwing. So it makes them better at what they do. But as you start to go down a path of specificity into any activity, whether it's throwing a baseball or playing the violin, there's probably other compensations or other things you're going to sacrifice, right? And so maybe for you, it's rotation of your thorax one way, or rotation of your shoulder one way. So I would say we got to start to kind of find out where we want to have you. You got to like work on moving the other shoulder, work on specific shoulder mobility to try to kind of offset that over time.
So, this is for you specifically, Kevin, but Mary Kate, I'm hoping you could maybe comment as well. Ask about your hoodie, which was on my list anyway, movement as medicine. I think is an interesting idea. As a concept, before you describe it, I'll probably agree with it, but I kind of like to know more about what it is specifically, both as a concept and a thing, or I think business for you. So could you tell me a little bit more about it?
Yeah, it's funny. So it's actually Movement Medicine is the name of my massage and rehab business that's actually attached right at Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning. And it's funny, the name Brendan Rierick and I went to UMass Amherst together, studied kinesiology. And our professor in Exercise 110, Barry Braun, was our professor. And he wrote an article about exercise and diabetes management. And the reference in the article that he used was movement as medicine. And so Brendan and I were like, I love that name. And after we went to massage school, we were working at MBSC, and we wanted to open a business. That name still stuck with us. So we used it as our business name. And because what I tend to think of here is what I do as a therapist is I don't want to make the client a passive participant in the process. I want it to be an active rehab process for them. So what I mean by that is I don't want them to just be like, hey, you're going to come rub my leg and then I'll be better. And that's the mindset, unfortunately, that a lot of patients have when they come in to get treatment. And so I try to explain to them at the beginning, like, yes, there might be some passive modalities like massage work that I might do, but much of the process of getting better and feeling better is going to be solved by exercise, by you. Because most of the time people end up in my clinic due to a lack of fitness in some regard, whether it's they don't have enough hip mobility to run and play the sport they want, or they don't have the overhead mobility to play tennis and then their neck hurts. It's always about kind of solving those issues. So we're always tracking people from the massage table to the mobility section over to strength training. I say ultimately it's a success for me if I can just refer you out to the gym and you can start training in a group or training with a personal trainer, and you don't have to see me week in and week out anymore. And so that's kind of the overall theme that we wanted to have in here, as opposed to just kind of traditional massage in rehabilitation.
Yeah, and I think, they really fill kind of a gap that's needed. Often you go to a massage therapist, or you go to a personal trainer, or, maybe you go to a physical therapist, but But then you need, a referral and all those other, barriers that are in the way. And again, I'll bring this back to my mom, who I'm sure is Kevin's favorite client ever. But when a couple years ago, she started having joint pain, and she'd always been really healthy. And she was like, I think I'm going to start going to the gym again. And I was like, and she's like, because she had been doing workouts at home that I had taught her when I had lived there 15 years ago. You know what I mean? And I was like, you really need someone to watch you, mom. And in thinking about it, I was like, well, what does she need? Well, like, she definitely needs some massage work. She definitely needs some prehab stuff or rehab stuff. She definitely needs some strength training. And reflecting on it, that's how I ended up sending her to Kevin purposely, right? I was like, you're not just going to Joe Schmo over at this gym. Let's figure out something that's going to work, So, she drove 45, 50 minutes to go get a training session in, and I think, that was, obviously I looked for a place that I trusted, but also I don't think she could have found something closer. So I think that it's a model that's needed. And I don't think there's enough of them out there. I know I have a lot of students who are interested in this kind of model. They're like, kind of want to go to PT school, but they're not sure they do. They like the strength training, and they're kind of in this like gap world that I think Kevin's business really fills. That I hope, I don't want him to have too many competitors, but I hope there becomes more gyms like it or more facilities like it to help, people get what they need rather than just going, to a group fitness class that's not going to address the needs that that person has as an individual. So yeah, I think it's a great model. We need more of them.
Yeah, I think the line of thinking is interesting, and I although I don't specialize in what you do, Kevin, I think about like my company and what is associated with the podcast, and like how do I treat people, and I realized it only like recently solidified my mind that I'm trying to treat people as whole athletes or whole people, not just like this individual thing where it's like and that's kind of the theme of the podcast in some sense is like, let's not just talk about like, have you guys come on and be like, okay, I run, tell me how to run better. Let's talk about exercise. Like that is a component, obviously. But then there's the mental component. Like, are you stressed out today? And like, how does that feel? And then, in your case, Kevin, are your muscles tight? Let's massage them. But also you need to work on like this amount of mobility and this flexibility and the strength. Like the whole athlete, it seems like I'm sure the idea has been around for quite some time, and maybe it's simply a matter of like self-fulfilling prophecy, or that's not quite what I'm after, but like when you're in the market for a certain car and you see that car everywhere. So maybe it's like that, where like I'm kind of in that mindset now, so I'm starting to see it everywhere. But I kind of feel like that more, I'll say like holistic approach is growing a little bit, where it's not just reserved for like woo-woo mystical experiences in Colorado where they're talking about what I consider hokum. It's actually, let's apply the science from various fields and treat you as a whole person. So, Kevin, was that like the genesis of that? Was that something you started with kind of growing up? Is it something that just kind of sparked at some point? Where does that wanting to marry those things, where does that come from?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of grown holistically. I mean, I'm like Mary Kate in that my first experience working in fitness and strength and conditioning, other than like when I worked at Gold's when I was 19 years old, was Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning. I interned here when I was 20, and I'm here now. And so I was very lucky that I started in the right place, because I probably saved myself a lot of time and frustration. And I saw what like a holistic functional training program looked like. So it kind of opened my eyes to what training could be. And I saw people getting better, like people with back pain coming and working out and getting better. I saw people who were coming off some sort of surgery or some sort of accident and getting better, and using strength training as a tool to heal people. And Brendan and I kicked around the idea of physical therapy school. I talked to some physical therapists I knew. I talked to massage therapists. I talked to Mike. I talked to strength and conditioning. And then also the economic decision of going to massage school is also part of it, because I was working full time here, and I was like, okay, how am I going to pay for this and do this part time? So we do nights. So it kind of was all holistic. And when I talk about good timing, I mean, the same time that Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning was expanding, we got out of massage school, and there was this extra office space next door that was unaccounted for. So me with zero business acumen at all just said, Mike and Bob, we'll just start renting it and then we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. And so it was holistic in that, like, we were in the right place. Like if I didn't have the foundation of training here and seeing the power that, training a whole person could have, then I wouldn't have kind of known how to put these pieces together. I might have gone a different route. And when you say, treat the person, it's funny, in the back of Movement is Medicine for my staff, like the other therapists I have here, I have like a list of things for them to think about every day. And one of the ones on there is treat the whole person and don't treat just the injury. And so you talk about like the psychological end of things. It's like sometimes my session for someone who might be dealing with chronic pain is just explaining them dealing with pain, as opposed to me, making them do exercises or me working on them, because we know pain's a pretty complex biological and psychological process. So getting them understanding the whole person and kind of where they're coming from is everything in managing pain. If it was as easy as it just being a mechanical stimulus, we'd be able to get a lot more people better. There wouldn't be people with chronic pain for years. So that's got to be the top of the list, I think, in both strength and conditioning and rehab settings.
The idea, and you're kind of talking about clients, reminds me of a guest I had way back, episode 23. Her name was Debbie Booth, and she works with typically older clients and does like work in pools. So these are like clients with very limited mobility, like sometimes can hardly even get them into the pool when they start. And I remember her telling me about just, thinking about movement as medicine, like being able to get them in and having that assistance of like water in increasing circulation and doing all these things, like these movements they haven't been able to do in, who knows how long, and like how much that improved their quality of life, and like being able to get them like to walk on their own without the assistance of a walker and these kind of things. And so that's where I wonder, how do we get more Kevins and distribute them to the people that need them, so that we're not so ailed by our own lethargy, is it, or our lack of mobility.
Yeah, I mean, education. I mean, to have more practitioners who are going to get people where they need to be. Like, you want professors like Mary Kate who are in a position to educate young coaches to get them the right mindset coming out of school. Then you want certification programs that are going to educate about treating the whole person and managing health on a broader spectrum than just doing, singular focused approaches to coaching. So it starts really at the base level, and so that people can, like I said, both Mary Kate and myself, we had really, really good foundations to begin with. And so that's going to form how you think about developing programs for people going forward. So I think it's about, getting the right people in places to educate.
I think to add on that, it's also, the general population of that understanding that, movement and exercise is as good as medicine, right? So sometimes it's easier to pop a pill than go and invest an hour into training, right? Or maybe it seems like too much of a financial investment to, join some type of facility or become part of a program, where that financial investment is going to pay off because you're going to be pain-free the rest of the day, or, hopefully into the future. So I know a lot of people ask me like, hey, can you write a program for me? And I'll be like, hey, can you do this, this, and this for 2 weeks? And then I'll write you a program, right? Because I want them to show that they're committed to it, right? And if they're not committed to doing the things on their own, then they're not going to be committed to my program either, so I think education, absolutely, hopefully I'm helping to develop these future amazing coaches who are going to be able to provide these services, but also educating. And we do this a lot at Springfield. We have an exercise as medicine program where we try to teach about the importance of exercise to people, and continuing to spread that, this is a way to feel better and this is worth it. And even though you have to set time aside to go and train or do your exercises, setting those 2, 3, 4 hours a week aside to do that is going to be incredibly beneficial to the rest of your time.
I'm a big proponent of the idea that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so I'm wondering from both of you, do you ever have to sell that to people in that framework where it's like, okay, let's project out. It's like, if, because as you mentioned, Mary Kate, they have to spend an hour. I mean, that's literally how we talk about it. We spend it. It's something I have that I spend, just like I spend money. And sometimes the money is involved too. So it's like, I've got to spend this time. I got to spend this money on this thing that, I don't really like it. But then, it can hopefully help prevent maybe chronic issues or pain or problems, health issues down the road. Do you have to sell it that way? Do you sell it that way where you say, like, if you work on this now, you're going to be, better off for it later? Because I feel like a lot of people have trouble thinking about, like, I'm in my early 30s, so saying, oh, well, 60-year-old me will appreciate it. Like, that is just such a long time frame, and we're so focused on, like, what's happening today. So I guess, do you guys sell it that way? And how do you get them to bite?
I always say you're going to pay now or you're going to pay later, but you're going to pay one way or the other with time and money, because you're investing, like, in your future, mortgaging your future. Like you said, it can be hard for someone who's like 20 to think, like, the inputs that I start and habits I start now are going to affect me later in life. But again, continuing to getting people to understand that it's a lifestyle investment for long term. We know it pays off in the long run, as long as people are doing the right things and consistently applying them. So, yeah, I mean, you always have to kind of get people to understand that. And I mean, sometimes you have motivated clients, and sometimes you have clients who aren't so motivated, and so you might have to kind of use that approach to get them to understand.
Mary Kate, I know you're working at the college, and before we got going, before the recording, talking about trying to work at home with kids. Are you still taking on clients too? You're mostly working with students now? Because you mentioned writing training programs, and then the program at the college.
Yeah, so 75% of my job is teaching classes. 25% is overseeing the graduate assistants who run our strength and conditioning program at the college. So I kind of supervise and mentor them. But then my husband and I, we also have a company on the side. We've kicked it off mostly this summer, where we're training youth athletes in the area. I tend to do any of our personal training, high-end people. Sometimes administrators or local important people I'll do one-on-one training sessions with. But then I also, just yesterday, we had 30 kids out on a field doing speed and agility, ranging from 6 years old to 16. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
So it was great. So I try to get my hands in and keep them dirty. I think that's really important as a professor, to still be doing it, while also having sanity, right? So finding that balance between still being in it, but teaching is my primary job. But yeah, I'm pretty selective. I'll take like 2 or 3 personal training clients at a time, and then do small group stuff, when it's fun for me. Coaching is more fun, more of a hobby right now than it is a profession.
So the thing I'm kind of curious about, and just it's, I'm interested in people, hence I have a podcast. But I'm wondering if either of you can think of any clients that come to mind. If I ask you, like, stories about, like, most improved clients, or things that, like, you saw in really, like, I'll say dramatic results. And I don't mean to play that up, but just, going back to, like, Debbie Booth, and she has specific clients that just, even the things that happened with them surprised her, because they bought into what they were doing. So I was just wondering if either of you had any clients you can think of that you're able to share about. I don't know what you can share or not share, and if you can't, that's perfectly fine. But just a curiosity.
Yeah. Well, at MBSC, we work with a lot of kids as well as adults. We have a pretty mixed population. And I always reference this one story when I talk about coaching, in that I had a young man come in. He was about 14 at the time. He came in with his mother, and he was really tall. He had grown almost 11 inches in a calendar year. And so he was about, I think he was about 6'4", 6'5", and he was about 145 pounds. So he was very thin.
Yeah.
And he came in with back pain. His mom brought him in not really to lift weights. She had reached out and said, I think he needs stretching. He seems tight, and his back hurts, his hips hurts. He's not playing sports right now because he's in so much pain, and he had just grown so quickly. And so what happens when you grow that quickly, it's not necessarily that you need stretching as much as you need to get stronger, because your limb lengths are so long, but your strength and stability hasn't really caught up. And the one thing I noticed about him is he wasn't very confident in himself either. Like when you're that tall, you see people kind of hunch down, and they kind of keep themselves to make themselves smaller. And he was pretty quiet. And over time, myself and the staff, we kind of broke him in socially, which was fun. And he started to get stronger. And when he started to get stronger, he started to get more confident in himself, like how he communicated, like he would flex in the mirror. And over time, like he left here like almost 100, he was around 190 pounds, which is still skinny at that height. But imagine he was like a whole nother person. Right. And so not only did he not have back pain, I remember he had back pain, he had shoulder pain. That stuff was gone, but he was strong. He was playing lacrosse at his high school. He was going to college, and he was into weightlifting. So now, like for me, he didn't go and play a college sport, but now he always he sends me stuff on Instagram, like, oh, look at this workout I'm doing. Or like, hey, have you seen this? So now like he has a love of working out. And so that's a win for me. I don't care if he plays a college sport or professional sport. I care that he's healthy, one, but two, that he's confident and passionate about something. And because of the experience he had here, he thought he was coming here to stretch, and we wanted to get him lifting weights and getting fit. And so talk about treating the whole person or training the whole person. That was definitely an experience for me where I was like, oh, this kid had a pretty life-changing experience coming through our facility. And that's what it's about as a coach, really.
Did you have to get him or his mom to buy into it's not stretching that he needs?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, sometimes early on in the process, like the parent drops them off and they're like, hey, I think they tell you what they think you need to do.
Right.
Hey,
right.
You need to do stretching. You need to do these drills. And you're like, yeah. We're going to work on that. We're definitely going to work on that. And then you maybe do a little bit of that. And then you give them a little bit of what they need. And over time, that as you develop a relationship with those individuals, then they start to trust you, right? So kind of building a foundation of trust with them over time, then you get buy-in.
Okay. That's the thing that always, it kind of kills me is it's like when you know just enough to be dangerous, I don't know if it's that or if it's a parent thing. I'm not a parent, so I don't know. Mary Kate, maybe you can comment, though you're an expert, so it's a little different, I guess. But I would guess, and I don't know, that is probably not an unusual situation, like you said. That, people coming in and be like, "All right, Kevin, I need you to do this thing," and you're like, "Okay," and then you're like, "That's not the thing that we need to do to fix this problem." So it sounds like you're pretty tactful about dealing with that situation.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Fitness is an interesting field because all the consumers have some sort of casual experience with what you do. And so they have their own belief system that they've already formed based on TV and magazines and what they've done in the past. And so you don't go to get your car fixed and say to the mechanic, like, I think that this is what you should do. Maybe we should try doing it this way. That you just trust them to do it because you have no idea like really what needs to be done.
Right.
And so I think it's important. One of my initial intake question, one of the ones I always ask is like, tell me about some of your past experiences with exercise. And so that way you have an idea where they're coming from, because everyone's coming from some different background, or it could be a positive one or a negative one. It gives you an idea where they're at, and then you can understand how to speak to them to get them where you want them to be. And some people are easier to deal with than others. And again, that's why I say to my coaches, it's just, you got to build trust with people, and then they give you an opportunity to teach them and to bring them along.
Mary Kate, can you think of any individuals that have good stories you'd like to share?
Sure. So before I was at Springfield College, my husband and I, we ran a business with Coach Bobby Smith in New Jersey called Reach Your Potential Training. And I was the adult program coordinator there. So I oversaw our adult program and personal training and whatnot. And I became pretty connected, and this was when I was a new mom too, to a lot of the moms that joined our gyms. And a lot of them were in that kind of like awkward stage where their kids were just old enough to start going to school, and all of a sudden they were home by themselves from like 9 to 2. Right. And that they hadn't had that for years. Some of them had 3 or 4 kids. They always had a baby they were taking care of. So I can think of one specific individual that she came in and she felt like really guilty that she was coming in to train during that time because she should be devoting that time to something that her family needs, but they didn't need her. So there was this kind of like loss of identity, loss of purpose during the day, guilt about not doing something for the family. And just working with this individual and helping them kind of discover the fact that self-care is important, that by doing something for yourself, you'll actually be a better mom later. And, I'm thinking of one specific individual, but like she was able to change her eating habits completely, stress levels. She picked up her own hobbies. She hadn't had hobbies in, 20 years, and by doing all that, she started feeding her family healthier food. Her daughters started seeing her run in, like half marathons and do different competitions. So then all of a sudden her daughters were becoming more into fitness and, just seeing that evolution which I'm sure Kevin experienced this is at MBSC, like we were training the kids in the afternoon, the adults in the morning, like you knew their whole family. And seeing this evolution of how this mom was able to kind of refine herself and start to love training and fitness and nutrition and to see the effect that had on her whole entire family was just awesome. And I think that was one of my favorite things about working in the private sector was that you were really able to see how you could help assist a whole entire family in becoming healthier and learning to love strength training and fitness and eating healthy and all those other really great aspects.
That's a really cool story. As we're starting to wind down on time, there's a question I ask every podcast guest each year. So each year I have a different question, but I ask it for the whole year. So I'll ask you both, give you both a chance to answer. The question I'm asking this year is, how do you stay motivated after failing to reach a goal?
I think being able to frame it as a learning experience and realizing like there's no set timeline, right? It might not happen right when you want it to happen, but being able to use that as a learning experience to build off and then get closer, right? Everybody fails. Like there's nobody who doesn't fail. Like some of us, like I fail. We have many failures on a daily basis as coaches. Like nothing. Sometimes the set doesn't go the way you want, or sometimes the group doesn't flow as easily as you want. But then you learn, hey, okay, what do I have to do next time? Like yesterday with my group, we have a bunch of new interns. Like we got a little bit of a traffic jam in the weight room. There was we had scrambling with a bunch of middle school kids, and then we grouped up afterwards. And I said, hey, so tomorrow when we take our group at 3:00, I want to go out and this is how I want things set up. I want to have you assigned to these coaches, you assigned to these coaches. I'll be assigned to these athletes, and we're able to kind of replan how we're going to go about it today. And I was going to run into that failure one way or another probably. And so being able to get better from it and then go out there today and do a better job, and us continually looking at it as a process, not necessarily an end goal. And so when you think about in the terms of fitness, thinking about like, yeah, we all have mini goals. Hey, I want to bench press this much, or I want to lose this much weight, or I want to do whatever. But thinking about this is all part of the bigger lifestyle change, like that Mary Kate referenced, and understanding how can I make this as a consistent practice in my life, as opposed to just like I'm reaching an end goal.
Yeah, I would love to piggyback off that. I think Kevin really hit on a lot of really important pieces. For me as an educator, as I said, I oversee our GAs who are our strength coaches for our athletes. And before they train any athlete, they need to bring me their workout that they're going to do. And I need to look through it and approve it, right? And when I do that, I see things that I think are like, maybe not the best idea, right? But if I just stop them and prevent failure, they're not going to learn. Right. So I make sure it's safe. No one's going to get hurt. Nothing awful is going to happen. No sport coach is going to call and yell at me because something bad happened. But I allow some things to go and I'll say, hey, I want you to really pay attention to this and reflect on it. Let's chat after and you let me know how it went. Right. And they go, they do it, they come back and they're like, oh, that was such a bad idea. I should have done this, 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 and this. I go, great, let's make the change. And so often I know it's coming. Hopefully none of them listen to this because they might not know it as much as I do. So don't tell Andrew, Kevin. But often I just kind of let things happen because you're not going to learn unless you fail, right? And I think you can even bring that back to your own health and fitness, right? Like you got to try something, you got to see how it goes, then you reflect on it, and then you make an adjustment, and then you try again, right? And again, if someone's stopping you from failing, you're never going to learn and grow. You're just going to stay in this like little safety bubble, which is not where we want to be.
Both good answers. Letting people fail, I think, is interesting. One of my business mentors, he always talks about you don't need to watch somebody fall off of a cliff to know you don't want to fall off of a cliff. But sometimes I think people do need to fall off of a cliff to know that you don't want to fall off of a cliff. It's as nice as it is to think, oh, just watch them and then go, that's a bad idea. Just for whatever reason, sometimes you've got to experience and have that visceral reaction of like, oh, that was not good. And then it all comes back to, okay, where do we go from here? So I think there's definitely something valuable in letting people fail in a controlled environment, not a catastrophic falling off a cliff kind of situation. But anyway, both of you, thank you for coming on. Where can people connect with either of you? Where can they pick up the book? All that kind of stuff.
The book you could get right from the Human Kinetics website. You go in there, right in Functional Training Anatomy. You could also go to Amazon. But I think Human Kinetics will like it if you get it from their website. And then you can find me at Movement is Medicine on Instagram. It's probably the best place for training content, or certifiedfsc.com for our CFSC certification information. Sure.
And I'll be honest, I'm awful at social media. If you want to see pictures of my kids, friend me on Facebook. I would say going to SC Strength on Instagram is the best place to kind of learn about what's going on at Springfield College with their graduate program. And that's really, those are my kids. Those are my babies, right? So my grad students, they are creating great content. And I am quietly behind the scenes cheering them on. And so if you want to learn more about me and what I'm cheering on, go ahead and check that out.
Awesome. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.